under
0 for 3. 0 for 3.
0 for
So good.
0 for 6, even worse than 0 for 3.
Underperform.
Hey guys, Talks Too Much with Third Party Studios. Thank you guys for sitting in and joining us on this episode of the Third Party Podcast. With me, as always, we've got the Slim over in the corner, sporting his red jumper.
Yo.
And in the other corner, we have the Cody.
It's just a part of his lore
My
now.
favorite suit. You never not wearing it from now on. You gotta say it.
Exactly.
He
yeah.
really likes red.
Cody, how you doing?
Yeah, you know.
All right.
Some things
pretty
happen.
rude.
And we
That's pretty rude.
well, and we just like last week, we have a guest joining us again. We have Colton joining us again for another recording. We really appreciate you coming on and recording with us. Hopefully, there's no audio issues this time. We can.
Yeah, we can get a solid start.
Yep.
Well, thanks
Bring a
for,
glad
guest
to be
in
here.
and he
Thanks,
fucks
guys.
everything
yeah,
up.
we had a lot of fun last week doing the review of the Super Mario Brothers movie. Hopefully, we'll see Colton more and more in the future as time allows for him to come on as a guest. Today, we got a couple of stories to get into. This is a little bit of a recap.
This is going to be a quickie.
It's quickie, but it's going to be a bit more of a recap on some news that happened this month. I think starting off with the Goosebumps story. So, dun, 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 dun.
Doodaloo.
So Goosebumps creator and author R.L. Stine responded to some news a few weeks back where it had been reported that many of his books were finding their ways to shelves with edits and revisions to the original work. So they would censor out certain content in the books, like if someone was called fat or any references to race. They really softened the language that was in Goosebumps books.
So you can only talk about skinny white people now?
That's the plan.
Oh, cool. I'm in.
Let's see how long we hold on to that.
Yeah.
Lean into it.
Lean into it. Yep.
But
Who's authorizing this? Is it like, is he out the door and he's not the CEO?
It would be his
anymore?
publisher, wouldn't it?
so R.L. Stine responded in an interview, I guess, to the Times of London, that he believes his publisher was making those changes behind
It's
his
not
back.
real.
He believed his publisher was making those changes behind his back, and he insists that he did not have any input in those revisions. It was something like 140 different alterations had been made overall, like more than 100 edits in ebooks of all of his different books that come out. So examples like creepy or fat or like certain race.
Creepy.
Yeah. So like,
That's all his books are about.
Yeah.
It's creepy ass shit.
well, so I mean, here's one example is like one of his books describes a black person as brown skin and doesn't say African American, and so that was actually a revision that was found
What
in
if
one
he's
of his
English?
books.
Is he African English?
I
African French?
don't know what his country of origin is. R.L. Stine.
That blanket term has never made it doesn't make sense anymore. Just
No.
because you're black doesn't mean you're African American.
Yeah.
you could be black American if you're born here.
Yeah, you can be black Chinese.
Just because you're black doesn't mean you're African American.
Yeah.
Well, Elon Musk is
It's
African
that
American.
it's that blanket term they just use, and it doesn't make sense if you
No,
think about
because
it.
no other country's using it. Like,
No, it doesn't make sense.
Well,
you could be a black American
not
if
to
you're
get-
born here.
I'm
not to
African
get political,
Russian.
but the reason that term was adopted by one party was really so as a catch-all for as many people who could
Exactly.
possibly be brought in as possible.
That's
And they
what I'm
said,
saying. It doesn't make sense.
we support African Americans, all of you, even the white ones.
well, now,
yeah.
Especially
Even the
white-
Caucasian Americans.
Caucasian
Yeah.
Americans.
we've gone all full circle now. It's back to people of color.
Yeah.
Even that's offensive.
Can't say
But
colored
that's
people.
picking everybody now. It's like,
People of color.
but if you're talking about a black person, you can say they're a black American or
Yeah. The only
Doesn't make sense
color
to me.
person that doesn't qualify is translucent people. You know, like people who just
Like me.
like you.
Yeah.
yeah.
Shockingly Caucasian.
The Irish. The Irish are the only one that doesn't qualify. I love how we got into that. But examples like roly-poly and plump are described as now cheerful. So and overweight
That's
is huge
stupid.
and six-chinned, and I mean all of these different descriptive terms have been softballed in revisions that the author was not made aware of, at least by his statement and declaration.
Yeah, it's to the point now where you can't even describe characters.
And
No.
they're fake characters. Why wouldn't you just let him use the descriptive terms he wants to use if they're not even real?
It's still real to me, damn it.
So I mean, the reason I grabbed onto this story was because Goosebumps is a series that I grew up,
Nerd.
reading a lot. I mean, if I did
you
book
read?
projects, it was usually on these Goosebumps books because I actually enjoyed them. Kind of growing up as a kid, I really liked the movies and the TV show that was out in the
I remember the
late
TV show,
90s.
yeah.
Late 90s, early 2000s. I thought that was really enjoyable. Not the Jack Black movies that came out. I thought that was an
don't even remember them.
abomination. I mean, young people are allowed to not know what Goosebumps is and like this new stuff.
I just know they had cool covers of the books.
Yeah, you sure
I
did.
never read any of them.
Yeah.
I never read them. I kind of stayed
I
away
read a
from horror
few, not
things
too
my whole
many.
life. I'm just not a fan of it, so I never read any of them.
With the four of us here being fans of like original stories, like I think all four of us here want good stories to come out and to exist. You know, I've talked a little bit about the content I'm creating. I'm really worried about what this means from a philosophical perspective, from a moral perspective. I mean, from a legal perspective, I don't really understand like how they were able to do that without R.L. Stine. R.L. Stine's alive, and my understanding of copyright is that you hold the copyright protection for 75 years after you pass, after you die. That's my understanding of the copyright laws that protect like R.L. Stine's work. So
Yeah, I'm not sure what kind of rights that the publisher holds on.
Unless it's somewhere in the contract we
on the
didn't
IP.
read, some loophole.
yeah,
There probably is.
and I'm
There's
guessing-
a loophole for everything, and
Yeah,
they'll
sure.
fucking find it.
If he has a loophole in there, he can do it, which is, BS. He should have a good lawyer go through that thing and
absolutely. But like the philosophical question here is, who has the right to your work? Like not from a legal perspective. When you create something, is that a product of? Does that belong to the world? Like, does that belong to you? Does that belong like
I think if you're the one publishing it and creating that, it's your work. But if you have the work out there, another artist can come in and put their spin on it if they want. But it's got to then say, they got to say somewhat, I took inspiration
Based on the
from their
works
work.
of blah, blah, blah.
yeah.
But so I think your idea should be welcome to the world so they can create off of it, but your work shouldn't be able to change like this just did. That shouldn't happen, what happened in this story.
So I want to make a try to apply a material difference to this between things like product and things like art. So, I mean, art can be sold, but I mean, do you guys see the distinction that I'm trying to draw? Like if someone developed a cure for cancer, right?
I'd patent that shit and make billions.
You got to make the money.
Yeah.
But
You can't do that because you can't cure something. You can't make money on something you can cure. You gotta
Right,
postpone that.
right. It'll cure you for a couple days.
Yeah.
And come back
Then
and take
come
my
back
product.
and
Yeah.
take another $10,000 shot.
Pharmaceutical industry in a
That's how you
nutshell.
do it.
Yeah.
That's
But-
a deep rabbit hole we shouldn't go down.
Well,
We're
another
gonna get real political.
here's another example, like a car. Like if you make a car, that's not your art. That you don't have any. No one thinks that the manufacturer who makes the car, or even the designer of the car, right? The guy who draws the physical shape of the
Yeah.
car out. No one holds colloquially the idea that person should have the right to that
that
idea.
design. Well, that's why you see every car company have quote unquote like the Equinox. If some car starts getting really popular look, everyone starts copying it because it's the popular look.
Right.
I mean, you can't go copy it exactly 100%. Like I'm saying, you can take your own spin on it, but
Everything's the same, but the taillights.
exactly. That's what they do because it's a popular. You see those Equinoxes and Blade, like every brand. of
SUVs
vehicle has
are
the
just
same
kinda
thing.
Jelly bean on wheels.
Merging together.
Every car has the F-150. Every company has a brand of it because it's popular.
Yeah. But now if you paint or write or create music or 3D render a video game design or something, if you create something that would be categorized as art or could be categorized as art, I mean, my thought process
Well,
is,
it's more of like with because it'd be like your IP, your
intellectual property.
intellectual property, whereas like say you're painting something, it's totally different than writing a story or something like that.
There's definitely huge distinctions between them, but I think the category I was trying to put them under was would be like art. Like, I think that there's things that people recognize as art, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's too broad of a term. But my thought process is, I think that when you create something that, let's say it's an IP, let's say it's categorized as intellectual property. I personally believe that the original version of that content, the original version of whatever it is, should be protected at all cost, at all human peril. I think that, so for example, you have Sherlock Holmes is actually a really good example of this, because I think it was a decade or more ago, the copyright for that expired. And so Sherlock Holmes became public domain, and you had all of these different movies and shows that came out about it because the copyright expired, right? Now, if you want to take the idea of Sherlock Holmes and make your own thing, fantastic. That's awesome. We have a lot more Sherlock Holmes content, Robert Downey Jr., Benedict Cumberbatch, whatever that crap on the CW was. So you have all this different content that exists out there. But then you have...
Can't believe you mentioned that program.
But then you have the original books by Sir Arthur Doyle, and those books are still in the hands of publishers. What is stopping the publisher from making revisions to Sir Arthur Doyle's original works and gradually phasing it out of existence? Because this was not an attempt to, this attempt on Goosebumps was not any... I don't see this as anything but trying to actually get rid of the original story. Trying to phase it out of existence.
Well, the whole thing with copyright and... the fuck was the other word?
Intellectual property?
Like rights and whatnot to intellectual properties. It's a shit show of law. And it's kind of like you can't just like write something and be like... just yell, it's mine, don't touch it forever.
Right. But don't you think...
Because you put it out there, I think people can do whatever the fuck they want with it. But
philosophically, don't you think that that story inherently deserves preservation?
It'll be there.
Preserves it.
It'll still be there.
Will it? Will it?
Yeah. The original will always be there. It's just if people...
Where?
What are we...
Well, so here's the argument.
Where will it be?
Clarify what you're talking about.
So here's what I'm saying is
I don't know, written on fucking stone somewhere.
Well, there are book burnings. Like here's perfect example of this was what happened with Dr. Seuss a couple years back when a couple of his books were flagged as...
Imagine Dr. Seuss being too offensive.
Yeah, Dr. Seuss was too offensive. Because he was... he's not alive anymore to defend himself, but he was a pretty... I think by today's standards, it would be pretty easy to categorize him as a racist, and that would be pretty easy by today's standards.
His personal life was pretty rough.
Yeah. In his time, I'm sure he was pretty normal for his day. But today, he's recognized as a racist by today's standards.
I don't know. Even back then.
Sure, but the point is,
did he cheat on his wife and was super racist or something like that, or am I thinking this wrong?
I don't know. A lot of artists are like that.
No, he wrote comic strips for newspapers.
Yeah.
And where his depictions of, I think it was black people and Indians was pretty, pretty.
That was the whole animation and cartoon industry back in the day, though. It gets pretty wild.
Like Mickey Mouse was...
Disney was... Yeah. If we're going to book burn, let's get after Disney on some of their shit.
Yeah, screw them.
The point I'm making is that Dr. Seuss had, I think, 3 books, maybe it was more, that were categorized as needing to go. And so these books were burned, destroyed. They were removed from different publishing houses. I think it was Penguin Publishing House got rid of the books. And then now you have physical copies of those books selling online as like sole copies. The books are almost gone. You have the original versions have become so rare that they are now collectible to the point where they're worth tens of thousands of dollars. That's how effective some of these attacks can be. Is you can completely eliminate history.
Okay, so say your story, you finish it, whatever, it's out there. You're saying like hundreds of years from now, no one should be able to touch it?
No, I'm saying that the intellectual property, the original book I write, should be protected.
Yeah.
That's what I think. That's it. I think that in 200 years, 300 years, when me saying the word fart becomes so offensive, people will jump off buildings out of sheer depression.
I find it offensive now.
Well, I mean, that's where I'm saying this is the slippery slope. But I'm saying that in a couple hundred years, when my book is found so offensive by current generation,
Well, that's what I was saying, though, is like the original work will still be around. It's just other people are going to draw from it or like revise stuff. But the original will still be there.
But my point is that we've gotten really close to losing pieces of history again. We've gotten really close. Like Dr. Seuss's books were a great example of this. Dr. Seuss is one of the most recognizable authors ever.
Never read a single one.
Well, so.
And you know, to go off that point, that's a very good point, because like where do you start taking this stuff away from history in like schools? You know, you've seen like school systems take out super racist, and they talk about
Huckleberry
how,
Finn,
like that, and To Kill a Mockingbird, and like they take these out of the system because they're racist, and like, yeah, our history was that. You know,
history should be offensive. If you're not offended by your own history, you're not learning anything.
And if you start taking away, you know, that famous line, I don't know who says it.
No, it's a good point.
If you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it. That's so true. You can't just take this stuff out of schools and not let people read and learn from it. Yeah, it's horrible, and you should be offended by some of the things.
Right. It's not like someone's becoming a racist because they read Huckleberry Finn.
Exactly. You got to learn from our mistakes. If you don't read this stuff and keep it in schools, it's the same
Didn't they
thing
try to
like
get rid of him To Kill a Mockingbird too?
Yeah, recently.
Yeah.
And they were
They're trying to
successful
take
in
it
a
out
lot of places.
Yeah, they took a lot of schools out of.
What was offensive about that one?
They used the N-word in it a lot. It's like
Those were the best parts.
I mean,
I don't remember
It
the
wasn't
story at
even
all.
more than 50, 100 years ago when that was so prevalent. It was normal.
yeah,
And it's like, yeah, we got to learn from our mistakes. You can't just.
exactly. And so my point is not that the internet doesn't exist. My point is not that these books won't have a physical copy left at the end of the day.
You think it's going to change?
Well, I think that when they first come out, you'll still be able to find those original copies, but any book that's published after, like many years after, when people start getting more offended, then those ones will be written
Edited.
differently. Just like with Mark Twain's books, any that they're copying now are much softer than they were when they were first.
Yeah, it becomes
That's-
watered down and nobody
Yeah.
cares about, I guess, the
that
story
just makes
anymore.
stories so bland.
Yeah.
But that's my point. Is once an author has passed and the copyright has expired, what exists to protect the original work? I have no problem if Mickey Mouse is public domain and can be used for anything. My problem is if you go back to the original, scrolling animation, right? The original scrolling animation that Disney's iconic for, where Mickey Mouse is on the tugboat, spinning the wheel.
Iconic.
That iconic moment.
Did you see the one where he's making Swiss cheese?
Yeah.
Yeah. Ugh.
My concern is that gets lost to history, or
Yeah, we
gets
should protect
revised.
that. I want that one.
Should be around forever.
So,
I think Mickey Mouse is actually the rights to it are coming up here.
They
soon.
are. It's very close.
Well, Disney's going to lobby, and as their prerogative, right? Wouldn't you want to lobby for that? I mean, if you were Disney,
I think they're going to let it happen.
well,
From what I've
let
read
it
and heard.
lapse. Disney's going to let it lapse.
Yeah.
It's all right. Everyone already uses it for whatever they want.
Pretty much. They just can't monetize it.
I mean, when you think of Disney, though, is Mickey the first thing you really even think about?
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
For me, it's grooming.
Oh, yeah.
For me, it's making absolutely sure that these kids see your wang. Absolutely positive.
Absolutely.
That's all when I hear Disney, that's immediately what my mind goes to. The branding has been very effective. They've done a really good job of making sure I know exactly where they stand on that issue.
That is true.
But what I want to see is, and I pitched this idea to Colton. What
That's
I want
me.
to see is a I think this is actually going to be an area where I'm open to getting my butt whooped on this opinion a little bit. But I think if you took some of the funding from public libraries and just a little bit of funding from public libraries and a couple of creative ways to self-fund it, you would have a great library of America where any content that an author creates. So like it's 2023 right now. If I publish my book this year, I could petition the government to take in this book into the record, and it would be classified as a legal document that is preserved.
Knowing the government, though, they'll find your book offensive. Decline you.
But that's the thing. But that's the thing. If
Kind
it's
of want like a Library of Alexandria kind of thing.
that's exactly
Where it's
what
like any books that came in, they copied them, threw them in the library.
That's
And
exactly what I'm thinking.
Till the
You have
Romans
to have a
burned it
massive
down.
library if you're talking everything from written in American history.
Well,
and
that's
then
what the
in
internet's
future.
for.
Well, my thought
Say it's gonna have to be
exactly.
digital.
Yeah, nothing on the internet's edited.
Well, well, that's the thought process.
I believe
is that
everything.
My idea would be have a physical medium of every single book that you have that can exist as a physical medium, and have a digital recorded record both on site and off site to preserve the file in its original integrity. And then the government must classify all written work as a legal document. That's the government's responsibility to protect. Now, here's my thought process.
That's kind of batshit crazy.
I don't think it is. I think it's a good idea. I really do. I mean,
So, say I come out with a commie manifesto.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I mean, do you, what? You come out with
Gonna do it now.
You come out with a commie
I guess,
manifesto.
yeah, I guess, yeah,
You
you're-
petition the government, say, I want this record. I want this recorded in history.
It'd be eliminating
in American history.
the picking and choosing of what you agree and what you disagree with, and what you
there's
find
zero,
offensive. Blah,
There
blah.
is zero screening.
I understand that.
I have no problem with a zero screen policy. I have zero problem with that whatsoever. And my thought process is,
How to destroy the government from within.
Yeah,
It's
just-
my book. Like
TM.
You sure we should see? We shouldn't investigate this one?
but I think
No, zero screening. Send it through.
But the problem with the
Stamp.
internet is you have Google, right? Who back in 2016, 2018, Google was eliminating searchable phrases. There was words and searchable phrases that could not result in Google.
Right, but what we had talked about is they're an independent company. They can do
But
whatever
Google
they want just
owns
because everybody
Android.
uses it.
Google is the Chromebooks. Google is the government has
Google
a lot
is
of
God.
operating system. Google is a lot of the government operating system. And think of their competition. Their competition is Microsoft and Apple. They're not exactly known for being opposition to Google.
If you can't Google a phrase, that phrase doesn't exist.
That is exactly the problem. That's why I have a problem
That
with
phrase doesn't
the. If it exists, it will be on the internet. I don't agree anymore.
No, you would have to like use other search engines and whatnot, and it's like
Go get an encyclopedia.
Well, yeah, they get rid of any like
Actual-
articles that are offensive and blah blah.
Yeah.
It's now we're just talking about free speech.
That's what I think it is. I think that created work, like especially books, especially comics, especially newspapers or stuff like that. I
You
think
can't even
they-
quote a famous speech without there might be
exactly.
copyright issues.
Exactly. I think the government has a responsibility to record history.
I don't think the government has a responsibility to do anything. I think it should just go bye.
I think they should. I think they should protect history, but
I think there should be recorded history that exists in the government. I think there should be a physical building with a copy of every possible book that could be recorded, that could be kept.
Yeah, like I said, Library of Alexandria. But
America.
you know what happened to that?
Well, that's where the
Got
digitization
burnt
comes
to
into
the
place.
ground.
That's where the digitization comes into place.
That's easy to get rid of too.
Well, you can attack three
You
different
gotta
sources
chip
concurrently.
that shit into stone.
If you have a physical copy and then you have on site a server that holds records of copies, and then you back that and sync it off site to another location, you would have to destroy a physical book, a physical server, and another physical server concurrently so that server couldn't be backed up in real time.
those are just the ones in the areas you're talking
Sounds like a
about.
lot of
You
work.
sell
Yeah,
books
I mean,
to
I don't-
thousands
You
of
think
people,
the government's
hundreds of
efficient
thousands.
enough to do all that?
Well, I mean,
Have
my
you
thought
been to
process.
the DMV?
So Colton, you were making a point. I
Right.
didn't catch it. I didn't catch it.
So yeah, what I was saying was that you're talking about those
Then you'd have
few
an IP
locations where they would
tax.
protect these books.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think the best way to protect original works is sell thousands of them across the country because they're not going to find all of them and destroy them.
Well,
Whether you could target one location and destroy everything in it,
Well-
but like you were saying with the Dr. Seuss stuff, you can still find those original books.
it's really, really hard.
Right, but if they were all in one place, they'd have been gone.
Yeah, the government takes
altogether.
control, or not takes control, but it has your IP or whatever, and then you have to pay a tax on it somehow.
Well, my
You're like,
thought
you
pro-
want us to keep this book around?
Well, my thought
give me
process
some
was,
money.
Yeah.
My thought process was take funding away from public libraries that
They're
already
already
exist.
lowly funded.
Lowly funded.
I believe a lot of public libraries.
You've been to the public
are.
library here in town. It
You've
is
been to the one in,
gorgeous
like,
building.
small
and it's
towns?
upca- What's that?
Small town public libraries are basically just volunteer.
What's
work
a
libraries.
library?
Sure.
Yeah,
Dude,
no
what's a
kidding.
book?
Is that
What's a
even?
book?
Is that like
A lot of the
is that
workers
an
are doing,
app?
like parole time.
So my thought process was something like this. My
Can I
thought process was
download
something
one?
like this, that you can either the government funds it through existing funds that already exist through public libraries, and this would just be another public library, just be much larger, right? Be much more significant, bigger investment. The other thought process I had
You're like
was
the
if you're-
warehouse from Indiana Jones.
Well, if you're a new,
Just
if you're a
goes
new
on
publisher-
forever.
If you're a new publisher or a small indie studio, and you're just trying to create some content, you could petition the government to take on this project, and then the government can get a kick off of whatever it sells from the GOV website.
I don't like the inclusion of the government into this at all.
Well,
I
think
like
about
including
so
government in anything.
No, I
yeah,
don't.
I agree.
so think about the you guys brought up the idea.
How
that
about
there's-
you write the book and then you just put it under your pillow and there's your physical copy.
Sure, I will. I mean, I definitely will. But the sell thousands of copies thing is also, I mean, there's also an issue with that. Small
Yeah,
independent studios.
maybe your story sucks and no one wants to buy it.
That's possible. It's actually likely. It's actually, I am very much my own harshest critic. But this was actually something Colton and I talked about too. It was the.
You guys talk a lot.
Well, I kept him on the phone for like a half hour running this whole thing past him. It's
You poor bastard.
he had to stop. He
Yeah.
soldiered through it. He was a good soldier through it.
And now you're
was terrible.
playing the rerun right now.
Yeah.
Well, I guess my thought process on the sales of it was a small independent studio, a very small company, can't protect themselves from big corporations taking their IP. Whereas if
Yeah.
you petition the government, the government can make it a crime for a corporation to steal your
It's
IP.
a hard world after all.
So I think
What do you
there's
think
a-
about
I
it,
think there's
Slim?
a safety mechanism in small creators to be able to turn to
Are you going to run for public office based on this?
on this. No, you're not going to be able to get people to vote for you because you want to pass a bill around
I
the
don't give a
library.
shit about abortion and taxes and blah, blah.
Make
Now
me a
hear
big
me out.
library. Make me a giant, out-of-date library.
I want a building
I
the
think
size of the Amazon warehouse.
I've thought of this. I do think it's a good idea, but I understand that it's like a kind of radical idea. Call me a
It's
radical.
the Cody and Talks show.
You're a
right?
radical.
Call me a radical.
You're a radical.
Well,
Your
all
idea
right.
is stupid. Next.
Well, that covered most of the. I mean, we're gonna have to move into the war room.
Yeah, might as well.
So this week we, for the war room topic, we decided to go on sitcom. So our number one sitcom choices we are going to bring to the table, and we're going to talk through them, and we're going to ask Colton for his input on who's his best in real time.
Oh, he doesn't get a choice.
I'm glad I'm prepared.
With this commie over here, just
Yeah.
not
Sit
letting
on
the guest
sidelines.
get a choice.
I like everyone.
I'm not opposed to him giving us a choice. I'm just saying we came prepared with these three.
I honestly don't really have much to say about my.
There.
Well,
Well, you don't want to say too much.
are you sure you want to be in
really,
podcasting?
really famous,
sure you-
really famous, and like
Got a face
what
for
we're
it.
picking for.
Yeah, I
for our
suppose.
sitcoms, they don't need saying too much because
Yeah, I don't need to
guarantee
sell it. You
everyone's-
guys have seen it.
Everyone's seen the ones we probably are picking.
Well, I don't mind jumping in first and going off on mine because I went
Okay.
last week or last time we talked about it.
Mine's
How do
Faulty
you,
Towers.
how do you
What?
remember that?
So the number one sitcom for this podcast episode, indisputably, obviously, there's no point in even having the other choices be reviewed.
That's
I
the
think-
show. Bye.
Yeah, good episode, guys. That 70 show. I love this show. It launched a lot of big careers. You have. I mean,
Did it though?
it did.
Two.
And one that
Two
burned,
people.
and one that burned down in flames.
One that I think is in jail.
Well, okay, so
It happens.
The other guy just had a Yo Mama show or whatever.
Who's that?
Wilmer Valderrama, the guy who
Yeah.
plays Fez, had Yo
He's in
Mama
a couple
on MTV.
movies now.
Yeah, he's been in stuff, and he's gonna
Well,
come. He's coming
Ashton
back.
Kutcher and
Mila Kunis.
Ashton and Mila are
Mila are
Both
huge.
successful. Topher Grace didn't stop acting. You could make fair criticisms about the movies he's in, but he didn't stop acting.
Red and Kitty
American
stuff,
Ultra was pretty good.
At least
Yeah.
from what I know.
Kurtwood's.
You didn't like
Actually,
it?
Red was in a couple different
I don't
movies,
remember
but
that
not
one.
never big ones. I don't think
He was. Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
he was kind of just played the same character, which he
Kurtwood's-
did a good job at it.
Yeah, Kurtwood Smith was in a couple of
It's-
things. He
if it's
voice
not
acted
broke,
too.
don't fix it, kind of thing.
Kurtwood Smith voice acted too in a couple of products.
I still can't believe the show started in '98.
I
Right?
So
it
what-
sure didn't seem like it.
we would have been 5 or 6. We would have been 5.
Yeah, I would have been 5.
Yeah, we would have been 5 or 6.
4.
4, 3,
I'm the young
1.
one.
And
You guys
so,
are all old fucks.
So I grew
Yeah.
up. I grew up
feel like
watching
it.
this show. I mean, I watched obviously reruns after 2006.
I didn't
but
watch it till college, but
Really?
high school. Yeah.
You got through all of high school with
No.
without seeing the show.
What'd you do?
Partied.
I think I watched it for the first time when I was like 10. I think I saw it for the first time when I was like 10 years old. So I would have been like 2003, 2003, 2004.
Yeah, I was always on the DVR.
Yeah, I loved this show. I think that this show
Too
actually
poor
does a
for
really
TiVo.
good job of doing comedy. But the serious moments in this show are actually very easy to remember too. It's like when Red has his heart attack and Eric has to give up going off to college.
Yep.
That was a deep scene. There's good scenes in this show that really stick with you.
Even the second episode of this podcast was basically about that 70s show.
Well,
Wasn't
the
it?
This is the
that
new one,
90s show.
the 90s show.
Oh,
Yeah, we're
So,
talking
yeah.
about
We were references. You are correct.
yeah.
Yeah, we definitely had to reference this. I mean, that 90s
Just
show.
Jimmy won't shut up about it.
It's in
His name
another
is Talks.
episode. it's episode 14, and we've talked about that 70s show twice.
Yeah, we haven't talked about Halo in any meaningful way even once,
Oh,
and
you
we've
just
talked
had
about
to
that
bring
70s
it
show
up.
twice. Well, I'll bring it up every time until we talk about it, except last time. But that's the only thing you can say about that 70s show in a negative way is that it spawned that 90s show. That's the only thing negative you could say about this show.
Show
I
took a
don't.
shit
I
after,
do not like how they replaced his sister. I think it
Well,
did a
Didn't she
lot of.
die of
She
drug
died.
overdose?
She had some drugs and then a car accident or something like that. It was something with drugs. I'm pretty sure.
It was an
I
overdose.
don't
we
like
all
how
know.
they did it. I mean, I can't say how you should do it, but I think in the show they should have honored the character in a way, and
Like done an episode
let
with her
the daughter
dying or what?
in the show as well die.
Well, they
in
just
some
brought
way.
the new actress in and just
Yeah.
Just
plopped
brought
I
her
know.
in.
I didn't notice because I didn't watch every episode in a row, but
They just brought her in.
yeah.
I think honestly, it probably could have been a really good way to end a season or premiere a season if you had like Laurie's character pass, and that's like a
Exactly.
death in the family kind
That's
of
what
thing.
I'm saying, and let the characters in real life, because they probably felt it in a way. They acted with her,
Let it out into
and
the show.
let them bring their actual emotions to their characters, and honor her in that way. You know,
Honestly, I agree with that sentiment. I think that's a really good point.
'Cause other than that, that's my only complaint with the show, because I think they executed so poorly.
Sure. I think that in a sitcom you have to be careful with how dark you let it go.
For sure.
Because you can burn your audience away from you.
For sure.
How I Met Your Mother, actually, I'll let Cody just go with it, but I think there's a very specific
nice
moment in
segue.
How I Met Your Mother I want to let. There's a specific moment in How I Met Your Mother I want to let.
Are you talking about
Fester.
what's his face's dad's death?
Yeah, Marshall.
Oh,
Marshall's
that
dad's
was
death?
so sad.
Anyway, yeah, mine's How I Met Your Mother. I'm not a huge sitcom guy. Pretty sure you guys all know I don't like fun.
Yeah, you hate fun.
Fun's terrible.
But yeah, no, this is like one where I've actually rewatched the whole thing multiple times.
Really?
Yeah,
It's good.
And
Same here.
actually, you're the one that introduced me to it.
I remember that, but I didn't think you.
Yeah, I'll take credit for that.
I didn't think you'd rewatch it even once.
Oh yeah, it's great.
My fiance is really into the show, so we've seen it probably 2 or 3 times all the way through until they took it off Netflix.
Yeah, it's
They
like
took
an
it off, right?
updated version of Friends, basically.
It's better than
Friends
Friends.
is
It is
terrible.
better
Yeah.
than Friends.
Can I
If
just
your favorite show is Friends, you can just turn this episode off.
can I
I don't
just
care.
We don't want you as an
We don't
audience.
want you as an audience.
What are you,
Yeah.
a communist?
We can really
Fuck
afford to
outta
be
here.
super picky with our audience. Right? As a growing studio trying to get bigger,
We
can
really we take a hard
You
stand
real-
right now.
You really didn't understand how much power we wield right now. We could just let you all go.
We'll let
You're
you
all
watch
gone.
Big Bang Theory, but
Dip.
if you watch Friends,
Oh, Big Bang Theory is another just abomination.
yeah.
I really like that show.
I'm okay with that
Actually.
show too.
Yo, we'll defend your position here. 'Cause that is a
I
bullshit.
just
Yeah, I
enjoy
guess
the
that's
show.
Colton's pick.
I just enjoy the show. That's all. I don't know.
Colin's like, don't yell at me.
I like the character. Yeah, I do. Yeah. I do like the characters, and I don't know. I really enjoy the
Actually,
show.
way
I started on
overblown
season
the
1, and
whole
I just keep watching it.
geek
I think
and
the
nerdom
acting,
thing of it.
I think
I
the
think it is the
acting
nerd
in
part in me that really likes it.
Well, no, I think they just way overdid it in that.
absolutely.
like
he's
he's
a
just, like-
PhD in physics.
No, I mean like they're like basement dwellers.
And one's an
almost.
engineer.
They're like so antisocial.
well, the
that's
here's
part
one,
of the characters.
Here's one thing you can't say
That's
about
who
the
you
Big
are
Bang
when
Theory.
you're really, really smart.
Well,
It's been proven if the more intelligent you are, the more you want to be alone.
Yeah, that's
'Cause they
right.
just-
I want to be alone.
They
all the
can't
time.
relate to people. If you're so smart, you can't relate to people, so you don't want to be around them.
I'm doing this out of a favor.
Even as a critic of the Big Bang Theory, though, you cannot say that the acting in that show is bad. It's not a position you can hold reasonably.
Yeah, no,
because
it's
the
good.
acting in Big Bang Theory is actually ridiculously good.
It is good. I like the show.
Problem
Yeah,
is
it's not
the problem is the fundamental like structure of the show. What they're actually doing in the show is overblown. That was really well said. It was just overblown. But I think that the actors are not at all the fault of that
Yeah.
show. Like
the later
being an
seasons
issue for
get
me.
better when like
the story gets
the
more
main
grounded.
character starts to get like married and the real life things happen because they're actually less antisocial than they were in the first few episodes.
Yeah, that's really what I want in my show. It's realism.
Yeah, you don't want any character growth or anything like that.
It's
Not in a
awful
sitcom.
nonsense.
Not a sitcom.
Give me.
It should be like Family Guy, where every episode is just right back to where they started.
You could mix and match Family Guy, just cut scenes and like.
But it's like,
Yep.
You'd be like, yeah, this is one episode, and be like, no, this is 8 different episodes. We cut all into one.
with How I Met Your Mother, it was basically like they almost reset every episode. There is the overarching plot of
Yep.
How I Met Your Mother.
Mosby trying to meet their mother. But it's like the more they grew and like starting to have like a character growth, the decline of the show towards the end of the
Yeah.
series.
Absolutely. Well, as the show
It's like when
started off
Bar-
as real like bro comedy fun,
Yeah.
and
It's
it
like
became
when
something different.
When Barney started like growing as a character,
I felt like
that's
they
when
rushed
it started
it.
to dip out
At the end, it was all really good. I think they rushed or didn't start that process quick enough.
I think they just didn't really know what they're doing.
I think they just rushed
They were
the
kind
end.
of writing it as they went.
They're like, oh yeah, this whole 8 seasons or whatever it is. Oh, I haven't met your mother yet. 9th season, met her, dead.
Did you
like, whoa?
Did you
Slow
guys
the
know
flow
that
here.
Neil Patrick Harris was paid almost twice what the other actors were?
That's a.
It was like
Well, yeah.
400
That's
something. It was like
Doogie
400
Howser or
and change
whatever.
against 200 and change.
Well, he's the
crazy.
biggest
Well,
star going in.
Well,
That
yeah, but
70s
that's
show,
big.
they were paid, was it that 70s show? They were paid like $1 million an episode? Or
Yeah, I
something
think
like
towards
that?
the end there.
Did you say that 70 show?
Yeah.
They were paid $1 million an episode?
Towards the end, I think.
Towards the end.
Wow.
I know Friends they were for a long time.
Yeah, Friends was way up there too.
Jeez.
Yeah.
These shows made multimillionaires out of really
Young people.
Z-list actors.
But I mean, name a better character than Barney. I mean,
Yeah, but
he's
you
so
can't-
quotable.
Wow.
But once you start,
That's
so relatable.
big-
That's
I
a silver
love
bullet
you. Oh,
right
not
there.
that one.
You were saying, Taylor?
But I said once you start getting like so big as a TV show, even though they're not like you said A-list actors, you can't get rid of them. And now everyone's
Right.
watching the show, so you got to pay them for that.
Right,
So they
right.
might not be A-list actors, but you can't get rid of them.
No, I know what you're saying, but I didn't even think that 70 show was making that much money at the end of its run. I didn't think it was making enough money to pay 7 main characters $1 million an episode. I wasn't thinking it was.
That is kind of a lot.
Isn't that a big? Isn't that really absurdly high? Because you got to think that between you got the main cast, which is 4 or 5 main characters. Then you have Red and Kitty. Then you have.
Oh, I was thinking
just the kids as the main characters.
I was
thinking.
still in How I Met Your Mother because I was looking at the TV.
Yeah, see, these guys making 200,000 an episode or 400,000 an episode, that makes more sense. Plus, there's fewer main characters than that 70 show.
Topher Grace and Ashton Kutcher were making $250,000 to $300,000 an episode.
That's a lot. That's still a lot. It's not $1 million.
Yeah.
But it's still a ton. And Ashton
Well,
Kutcher
it was
probably
Friends that I was thinking.
You're
of.
probably
I think you were thinking
might
about
have-
Friends.
You're probably
'cause they were
handing out 2
definitely
million episode then in total.
But that
a lot.
that number would make more sense. But Barney Stinson, a more quotable character. Today, no one quotes Barney Stinson. But in 2000
Oh yeah.
but in 2010, in early 2010s, everyone was saying legendary.
Yeah, for sure.
Like all of these references absolutely were big. But
Yeah, I
For
mean,
sure.
no one quotes Barney Stinson today.
You had fucking dudes buying like the bro code and all that shit.
Hell
I think
yeah.
you bought a copy.
I bought a copy of the Bro Code.
I have it too. I don't
Yeah.
anymore, but I did have in
It's at
college.
Spencer's, right?
Yeah.
It was at
Yeah.
Spencer's. The
It was in
playbook was
Spencer's.
there too. At the time, I could only afford one or the other.
It did kind of spawn this whole douchey bro kind of
Sure
thing.
kind of did.
To where it's like,
It was funny
we're
and
just trying to
fun.
get laid.
Well, to be fair, I mean, women also watched the show and they knew exactly what was happening.
Oh, for sure. That was just the gimmick.
And they knew exactly what they were playing into also. It's not like women didn't
The
have,
worst-
have their fun with it too.
The worst thing to come out of How I Met Your Mother is the "Have you met Ted?" Because fucking people, we used to do that to each other, going to bars and shit.
Yeah, it was
just
not
walk
fun.
up to random people and be like, "Have you met Jimmy?"
Yep. I remember doing that.
That was not fun. Thank you.
It did
Made
give me
me so
one.
uncomfortable.
I like
It
how you
did work
both are
once
recalling
for me.
memories of doing that to me. But it was, yeah, you're exactly right. How I Met Your Mother also is responsible for producing a spinoff.
Oh god, I forgot about that.
Here's what I'm hearing.
Did anyone even remember that?
I'm hearing positive things about it though. Neil Patrick Harris
He just make a return.
he's coming back as a character. He's coming back as a recurring character.
Nice.
He's not going to just
Maybe
be
I
one
should
and
try to
done.
watch that because I did like this show.
It might be. I mean, honestly, I have some issues with reboots just in general because
for
they're
sure.
overdone.
Yeah.
But most of the time, I have some fun with it. I mean, I want to start having some fun with some of these shows again. Slim, why don't you kick us off with The Office?
Yeah, that's my show is The Office.
Spoilers.
Yeah, this guy.
Well, I said How I Met Your Mother before I
See,
handed it over to you,
commie
too.
over here.
This is a rolling
Yeah,
gig. I'm a
mine's-
commie.
yeah.
You wear
I
shirts
wear-
that you don't wear,
I wear red. Yeah.
and Cody hates fun. Colin, you're witnessing history here.
Yeah,
We're
it's in the
identifying. We're
making.
coming up with our own identifiers.
Yeah.
The-
My show is The Office.
The
Spoiler.
American
No.
one.
I've seen it all the way through probably a dozen times. No joke. Just because I would have it running in the background back in college, just all the time. It was just on kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean the show is very popular. I've only seen a couple episodes.
It's
but
so good.
that's
the
like the
first-
number one show watched on any streaming is The
It
Office.
was, yeah.
It's-
It's just good comedy. Definitely,
the
I
number
could
one
say
show on YouTube Shorts.
I could definitely, I could definitely say
I see that
season
shit all the time.
season 7 and 8 were very rough. Very
Is that like
rough.
when they got rid of Steve Carell?
That's when Stephen Carell left, and they tried to basically copy and paste Will Ferrell in there, and it was not received well, and it was terrible.
I hate.
It's like
Will Ferrell.
why would you bring a character
Just throw
in?
that one out there.
Can't stand him.
Why would you bring a character in to just basically try to
Do the same shit.
shoehorn him in is what they were trying to do. It was so bad, and I think they realized that because it was like 4 or 5 episodes later, and they basically, I think they killed Will Ferrell off. I remember like a season later, they're like, "Oh yeah, where's he at? Oh, he's still in a coma. Oh, that's right, he worked here. What? He's still in a coma?
Well, I mean, I started watching that show from season 1. I had a really difficult time hanging in because the first 2 seasons were insanely dry.
The
and
first season is rough, and then it gets really good.
I had a hard time in
I
season 2
think they were
also,
trying
but
to
you might be right.
copy
The British one.
The British one.
They were, and that's
And
And then
us
they're like,
stupid
Americans are
Americans, we
funnier.
can't do
Let's
that.
just do
bad
it.
idea. But I think 2 through 6 were really good, and then season 9 was good. Dwight Schrute, Rainn Wilson really picks up the slack.
Oh, he plays that idiot so well.
He does it so good. He really basically puts the show. Him and John
Krasinski.
Krasinski pick up the slack big time. They do a really good job in season 9.
When they were casting that show, that John was saying they were trying to find a character for Dwight, and that he was just there to audition for it. And he's like, God, this guy is the most annoying person I've ever met.
What happened was John Krasinski came in for Dwight, and they reversed roles.
Mm-hmm.
So they were trying to play for their reign for
Each other's character.
Yeah, basically. And then the guys are like, why don't you guys switch? Just try it. Because they're in there together. And John Krasinski's like, this guy is so infuriating. He's pissing me off. And he's like, I thought to myself, oh, he's doing a good job. Screw this guy. He's doing a
perfect
good
lead.
job.
Yeah.
And they're like, this is perfect. You two are cast as these guys. I
Oh,
was like,
that's
that's a good little story to have.
John Krasinski, he is huge now.
He's made a huge name for himself.
He has a really good.
He
Tom
really
Clancy he
busted out of
plays
the
is
show.
really good.
Yeah, Tom Clancy. His portrayal of in that movie 13 Hours.
Yep,
Oh, I still got to see that one.
That was you haven't seen that?
No, sir.
it's good.
Wow, that's a good movie though.
I know.
I've seen it too.
And then
then-
the success of A Quiet Place,
And the
which he
sequel.
wrote and directed.
Yep.
I want to
Yep. And acted in.
And acting, and he did all.
Yeah.
Yep. He really busted out of his shell.
The sequel was
Very
okay
happy for
too,
him.
except the just like everything else modern. It's like it doesn't make any sense when it comes to like the deaf person.
Yeah.
It's like the deaf person's like has superpowers, and I'm just like, okay, that's fun. Well, Colton, do you have a favorite sitcom or anything that you want to?
The only one that comes to mind is How I Met Your Mother, because that's just the one I've always watched. I enjoy
That's a
a
vote
lot.
for me.
It sure
Yeah,
is.
I mean,
We're
I
starting this
enjoy-
early.
I
Fucking
enjoy a
4-0.
lot of sitcoms. I mean, there's some I can't
Right,
get
I know.
behind, but I don't have a
This one's
favorite.
done.
Sure, I gotcha.
Right. Count it.
Well, I mean, if you had to pick the most iconic scene from your show, I mean, previewed mine a little bit, but I do think the most powerful scene from my show was probably when Red has heart attack and Eric has to decide to stay home. He has this little tantrum, and then 10 seconds later, Donna's like, and we could still visit each other on weekends. He's like, oh, you're still going?
Yeah.
I had my little tantrum. I thought you were going to stay home from college too. No, but that was probably the highlight for me in that 70s show as probably the best acting scene. It's such a long show, but I mean,
Right. I just come up with like memorable episodes, like the sword fight, the pineapple incident, the St. Patty's Day one.
Yep. Marshall's father passing away is always brought to me.
yeah, I can't believe you're not just leaning into that one. For me, that's an obvious
Well,
one for
we're
me.
talking about sitcoms.
Yeah, but I mean, there's
Not-
not,
it's
like
not-
That's why
scene
it's
in
so
that-
strong and
Which
so it hits you so hard.
sitcom had the best heart attack scene? It's like, no.
Oh yeah, I guess he did die from a heart
Yeah, he
attack
did.
also.
Sure did.
Man, heart attacks are sad.
Don't they suck?
Don't they just? God, they just.
My chest.
As you drink a nos.
Drinking heart attack juice.
Slim.
What?
I mean, The Office. I mean, The Office has 1 billion episodes and seasons. Like, and
Yep.
all of them
9
are
seasons.
identical.
Have you seen the show?
It
Debate.
follows a formula.
That was a
That's
low-key
its
stab.
shtick. The shtick of Office is that
For
it follows
sure.
a formula.
And yours too. Not that long ago, he just said he's like, I don't know which episode's which.
Yeah. But The Office actually has a formula to itself.
I mean, that 70s
is
show's not
copied
very good
across
anyway.
Future, like types of sitcoms in a very specific way.
Yeah.
A funny thing happens.
catch
Then there's
that
also
in
it's a mockumentary. Mockumentary, I think, is the
basically.
formula for it. And so that's what I'm getting at. It's not that it's not a sitcom. I wasn't making that point.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it has the mockumentary formula to
Yeah.
it. So it's hard to for me to pick a specific moment in the show that stands out.
He's
like that.
Yeah.
really trying
No.
to win this one.
Yeah,
look
he didn't
at
Are
even
you
hear
sick
my
of those
stab.
zeros?
Hey, it's not my fault.
Um,
I'm ridiculously smart and I have good things, important,
Yeah.
smart things
No,
to
when-
say. Kind of.
When Steve
Important.
Carell leaves and they all throw him like a
I
like
was
a
smart.
party kind of thing is really
The
really
airplane
iconic.
scene, or where they're at the airport.
Special.
Well, that too, but like they all sing to him in the office.
I gotcha.
That's a really good part.
Oh, the farewell.
Yep.
The,
Or Jim and Pam's wedding is a really good one too. But
For me, it was
he
the
comes back for that, right?
when-
That's what happens there. He comes back for that. For the
that's
wedding?
Dwight's wedding.
Oh, okay.
The very end.
For me, it was when Dwight was he found out what was it? Is it Angela? Was I think either they broke up or she cheated on him or something, and he
When
goes
the kid isn't his.
he goes
I
and
think
cries
of-
in the stairwell, and then John Quilcy's character goes and sits in the stairwell
Yeah.
with him, and he's talking about
When
like
she
Pam
chooses
and stuff.
Andy over
Yeah.
him.
and that was I think-
Classic.
yeah, when they're crying and sad.
What a loser.
That was my favorite. All right. Well,
When he was crying in the
yeah, so
stairwell.
we'll try to wrap it up there. This is a little bit shorter episode of the podcast. We were due to some technical difficulties, we had to cut it a little short. But
It's all Colton's fault.
I hope you
Yeah.
guys enjoyed this episode of the Third Party Podcast. We had a lot of fun recording this one. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. We are still on our way to our first 100 subscribers, and we could really use some help getting there. If you like this video, share it with your friends, and leave a comment on which of those sitcoms you like the most, maybe what your favorite scene was, or if you have a sitcom that you liked more than our options and you think we should bow down to your choice. I mean, we won't, but we'll at least look at your comment.
We'll
and-
pretend
I
to
mean,
care.
this is going to be win number 4 for me.
Yeah. Also, like my choice in the comments because Cody can't be allowed to keep picking the mainstream choice and winning.
So much better than everyone.
All right, we will wrap it up there. Thanks, guys, for listening.
That's
we'll
a
see
good
you guys
note
on
to
the
end it
next
on.
one. Peace.
See ya.